Hey, everybody. This is David Delaney with Tenbound, and I'm so excited to join today to speak with you about some of the work that we've been doing in understanding buyer behavior and how people really buy, in this case, sales technology, but across the spectrum, really. Here at Tenbound, we're a research and advisory firm that works with companies that are trying to grow their pipeline and revenue, and specifically boils down to their people, their processes, and especially these days, their technology stack. And we know that sales technology has been growing tremendously over the last few years. And it's really, in a lot of digital environments, has become table stakes to have several sales technology processes in place and solutions in place. And we've noticed that if you can do this right, you can really accelerate your pipeline and revenue production. If you do it wrong, it becomes almost like a hindrance um, of having too many tools plugged in and having the whole process be sort of discombobulated. And what I was really curious is about how do people discover sales technology today, and what's their process in going through and evaluating it and buying it. So I set out to speak with folks across the spectrum, from SDRs to AEs to marketing professionals, all the way to CROs and CEOs of companies. How do they really go through the process of buying? And we've noticed that as we've worked with companies, you can usually break down uh, the process into the people, the processes, or the playbook that you might call it, and or the sales technology that they have plugged in. And so as you start to double click on any of these, there's usually some sort of issues, either the alignment of their revenue engine or specific issues with the people, the processes, or the technology. And we've worked with hundreds of companies over the last few years to help them figure this out. And what we've noticed is that there's been a explosion in sales technology that's out there, and what happens over the years is sort of there becomes a like a stacking mechanism where there could be multiple layers of sales technology built in to the sales stack, and not a great deal of coordination happening, and even sometimes a situation where there could be some duplicates, or even, what they call shelfware, where somebody bought this sales technology several years ago and it's just been sitting there. Nobody's been using it. And especially with the explosion of sales technology, solutions that are out there, we've noticed that it's really becoming hard to understand what's the best solution for your particular issue, and how does it work with all the other technologies that are in place. Why are there so many solutions? Well, we had a situation where it wasn't as hard to start a company just a few years ago, where you essentially, if you had a good idea, you had some funding behind it, a few engineers, and the AWS, you could essentially start a software company a lot quicker than you used to, and investment wasn't as hard to come by as it used to be in that 0% interest rate environment that we've been living in. Sales is a hot topic. Everybody needs sales. If you the more fancy way to say it is revenue. Everyone needs revenue, and they want to create a revenue production system where they can hit their number regularly. So there's a lot of interest in this topic, and not as much technology that's applied to it as some of the other parts of the business. And there's also a tremendous number of inefficiencies in the sales process that before the digital age, we really couldn't measure and manage and track. And now we're able to. Everything that you're doing in the digital age is being tracked and measured. And if it can be measured, it can be managed and improved. And so this convergence created a situation where just one of the market maps, this is the one that we put together specifically for the sales development world, goes to show, Cambrian explosion of sales technology that's out there. And even this map is outdated at this point. There's been more. There's been consolidations. There's been a lot of changes that have taken place in the sales technology landscape, and especially if you go to some of the other landscapes that are out there, there's even more technology applied to specific roles around demos and recurring revenue and sales coaching, etc. So it's just there's so many choices out there for the consumer, and where do you even start with something like this? And we know, in the background that we saw this boom in sales technology, and now, SDR and sales teams could have as many as 5, 10, 20. I mean, the number goes on and on, how many different technologies are in place. And it seems like there's a unlimited number of problems that come up in sales that you need help with. And on the flip side, there's so many sales technology companies that it's sometimes a solution looking for a problem. And the marketing of these products is very sophisticated, and it looks to a buyer that everything, even if it's a brand new company that just was created a couple of weeks ago, looks like, oh, the way that it's marketed is that this can definitely help to solve the problem. So we've tried to identify these, put them into the market map, and then categorize them, and I'll show you later how we do that at Tenbound. But let's go through the buyer process as we see it right now. And I'm hoping that no matter what you're selling, whether you're selling sales technology, a different type of software, and even services, that you could potentially see your buyer going through this process, because it's really not that much different. So they start with the problem. What is the problem? So it could be a data problem, a process problem, coordination with prospect information, especially in the sales world. You can never get enough data. It's got to be good data, and it's got to be clean data. So if a sales rep or an SDR or a manager identifies this as a problem, then the next step might be to discuss this internally, and talk about what solutions might we already have in place that are potentially not being fully utilized. Do we have good prospect information? We just don't know where it is. Or someone bought something a few years ago, but they don't work here anymore, and we potentially are still under contract. So they began to talk, internally, usually, to see, is this something that we already have? And if it comes out, actually, no, this is a hole in our process. We don't have anything that could potentially help with this, and we need to start looking around for potential solutions. Okay, so next is we do the same thing that everybody does. We go to Google, or some of the bigger B2B sites, and start to look for information on what potential solutions might be out there. And it probably depends on the generation of the person that I was talking to, but most people start at Google and look on LinkedIn and those more traditional sites. I even had one person tell me that they look on TikTok for their initial search process to get information from maybe a sales guru that they follow on TikTok. But they're looking for, what are some of the solutions that could potentially help me? They want to look at those we've all got extremely short attention spans, and there's only enough time in the day to start to do these searches. So it's got to come up, first page, maybe second page, and we need to start to narrow down some of the major players that are in the market to be able to see what's a legit company and what are ones that just don't have any traction at this point. The next trend that we heard a lot of is going into trusted communities. And those are from, they could be on Slack groups, they could be in group chats, they could be more established communities, um, and start to ask around basically to sort of the digital um, world that we've created post COVID on what are some of the major players, who are some of the major solutions that could potentially help with this problem. And people really trust communities as long as they're self-policing and it's not a lot of the actual sales tech vendors in there, um, pitching their product in this community forum. And some of the best communities that are out there, they are very insistent on no pitches, even no vendors are allowed. And so you guarantee that the community insight that's being created has not been tainted by, the traditional kind of pushy salesperson who's in there looking for low hanging fruit. So it becomes hard if you're the one who's trying to sell. You should join these communities and go in there and observe, but you might get kicked out if you start trying to pitch your product. So buyers are really looking for real advice in neutral spaces so that they can get those community suggestions and really understand how to start to weed out most of the other competition and start to shortlist the 2 or 3 companies that could potentially help them. And once they get into that, what I heard was that then they're definitely open to potentially thought leadership and looking at the point of view of the vendor to make sure that it's aligned with the use case that they're trying to solve. Next step in many of the people that I talk to is review sites and going out to the major trusted review sites and looking for, just as though you were on Amazon or Yelp or something like that. You want to see number of reviews, the number of stars, or different classifications that's give you an indication, and a nice range of reviews so that you've got the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's not just, all 5-star reviews that were probably, written by the actual vendor themselves. It's a good mix of everything. And they are looking for any evidence that does the this provider work with companies that look like me. They feel like me. They're in the same industry, and they're at the same level even of the reviewer, that this is somebody that I can actually relate to, and it's helpful to be able to understand the context and how they might be able to potentially help me. There's various magic quadrants. You've seen the boxes and graphs and different shapes of being able, especially when there's a lot of players in the same area, being able to quickly visualize and capture, okay, I don't have time to take demos with 27 different vendors, but there definitely are 3, 4, 5 that are in that top quadrant and are established in this area. Now, all of this depends on, am I a startup? Am I a mid-market company? Am I an enterprise? There's all different buyer considerations based on how big I am. If, for example, if I'm a startup, maybe I don't want the company that has 50 reviews and are in the top, of the quadrant, because they're probably going to be too expensive, for my budget. Maybe I want to also work with a startup, that's scrappy and hungry and wants my business, and could potentially help me. Now, you couldn't bring that startup as a solution in if you're a mid-market company or an enterprise company, because they don't have all the features and security and everything that you need in that space. So it's really making sure that you're aligning not only your company with the solution, but also the life cycle of the vendor that you're looking at. So they'll look at review sites, start to get some options down. Now we're starting to narrow things down, and it's like, okay, I know that there's the big three that are the top choices right now. I know that we're not using any of these at the company. And these are the ones I think that we should look at. And you can notice now that, and this has been going on for a number of years, but I think the analyst firms and different people say that 60, 70, 80% of the buyer journey is already completed by the time they reach out to you and hit the contact button or other places. And how do you affect that journey if they're waiting until the very end to be able to narrow down the options and start to talk to you? The other question is, as a salesperson, you better bring value at this point, because they have done all this research. They probably know more about the industry and the vocabulary than you do at this point. And that it's almost like a lot of the younger generation don't even want to talk to a salesperson. Just give me a link and I can buy it. But there's a lot of value, obviously, that a salesperson can add once they get to this point. And that's really being a trusted advisor, opening up with a lot of discovery and really understanding the problem that the person's trying to solve. And if you have the right solution and you have confidence there, then proposing that. And if you don't, then you know a lot about the industry too, and you could potentially hook them up with a better choice and really create that trusted advisor relationship. So now also at this point, we start to bring in the multiple stakeholders. And so this, for example, the sales rep has done a lot of work to do this research. They've vetted it out. They've done a lot of the steps that we've been talking about. Now they need to go and pitch this and pitch it internally. And so they might need to talk to the revenue operations people or sales operations, marketing operations, their boss. And there's a lot of time and effort spent, walking this solution around. And at any point, it might get shot down. If they do get through all this, they get the nod and they're willing to take that call with you, then it could be that there's what we call the shadow stakeholders that are involved, who you're not really familiar with, and you have no idea what their part in the overall process is at that point. And so, especially now, this could be the VPs and even the CFO involved in making sure that one, we're getting full maximum value from the investments that we've already made, and then two, that we're not bringing on any more technology until the economy improves and things are looking better. So there's a lot of different stakeholders that may be involved that you're not even sure about right now. But hey, if you got the initial inquiry, you might be one of the ones that have been fast tracked to go to the next step. So now, this is where a lot of times as a salesperson, you might put in, hey, I had a great call with this person. They vetted us, they narrowed it down. We had a great call, asked a lot of open-ended questions, got a lot of information. This is definitely going to close. Not so fast. First of all, there might be, like I said, multiple shadow stakeholders involved who you've never met before. There could be a lot of interoperability issues where your tool might not necessarily work, and then there could again just be no appetite necessarily for more technology. And so as a great salesperson, and knowing that 80% of the sale has already been made by the time they get to you, your job now is to really be a guide and make sure that you're knowing all this information, and then guiding them in the right direction, whether it's your company really is the best, or it could be that you recommend them to a different environment. But at this point, the deal could get shot down at any moment. There's a couple of disclaimers with this buyer process. And one is that there's the rise of the product-led growth models, which sort of upend the entire process that we're talking about here. Because what I have found with, especially with like SDRs and AEs, is they can circumvent the entire buyer process, especially at smaller companies that I've been talking about, where they just simply plug in something in a Chrome extension or directly, from the website, and they just start using the product. And they don't necessarily have to ask anybody. They don't have to get permission. And they might even log in with a Gmail address and just start using it, getting value either as a freemium product or in a free trial. And then they sometimes can get a tremendous amount of value from this. And at some point, then they have to come in and ask for permission to either stop paying for it with their own money, or upgrade to a license that actually integrates with the rest of the technology stack. And so at some point, the boss is going to find out, and then they kind of have to start from scratch. But they've already got a track record of using the product, and it works, and they love it, and so it might be a little bit easier to do it. But at least at a larger size company, they're still going to have to go through all the vetting process and make sure that it fits in. And like I said, that there's various buyer processes depending on the level of the person who's going through this, and then also the life cycle of their company, whether they're startup, mid-market, or large enterprise. It's sometimes it's just a simple sliding scale of the amount of complexity and the number of people that are involved, depending on how big the company is. And especially as you get into the enterprise level, it could be just one tiny subset of the company. Generally, they wouldn't, if you were just like an SDR at a gigantic company, they probably wouldn't even allow you to start plugging in Chrome extensions and product-led models without getting in trouble, but if you're at a startup and you're the first SDR and you're wearing every hat imaginable, you can probably plug in every product-led growth sales technology and do whatever you want, as long as you're getting some results and you're not violating any security measures. Then you're good to go. And especially for product-led growth companies that are looking at that, and I know that there's some sales technologies that are coming out to address this. It's really important that you look at it three-dimensionally, in that understanding who is actually using your product, how they're using it, what level they are in the organization, and what the usage looks like, because those could be great leads for being able to expand the footprint of your company without having to go through all the very, very tough marketing challenges that go into becoming one of the top 3 or top 4 and more of a sales-led motion. So definitely some food for thought. So key takeaways from this as you're thinking about, hey, where do I fit in? Whether I'm a demand gen marketer or a salesperson, thing number one is just realizing that, and we know this, but we really have to set up our entire demand generation funnel, knowing that most of the sales process takes place before the demo stage. And folks are following this general pattern when it comes to sales technology based on my sample size of research, but they are inundated with information. Information is essentially a free commodity right now, and it's almost like a fire hose that's out there. Where they're starving for is context and being able to contextualize how your particular point of view makes sense. It could potentially help them with their if you think of the concept jobs to be done, how does your solution fit in to the thing that they need to be able to do with a piece of sales technology in this case? So you've got to be able to focus on something that most people have not thought about in the last few years, which is brand. What is the positioning of your brand, your thought leadership, and what you're thought of immediately, out on the communities and in the review sites and speaking at conferences, etc. What does your brand mean, and can people understand it very, very quickly? If you're competing against the market map that I showed earlier, how are you going to stand out? It's a really tough marketing question. So, and you've got to understand that, as I said before, your value, and now if we're talking about as an SDR or a salesperson, is really being a guide and an industry guide, an industry expert that's saying, okay, I'm really good at understanding your problem and what you're trying to solve, and I'm digging in on that in discovery. And once we have a great understanding of what that is, and I know the tools that will be able to truly help you, and I can get behind those. And best case scenario is it's our tool. It does everything that you need. We have the credibility to be able to deliver on that. Let's get it going. If it's not, then that's a great trust building exercise, because maybe we need to bring in one of these other potential solutions, or let me introduce you to someone who could potentially help with that, and establishing yourself as the quote unquote trusted advisor in the process. That's where sales can really make a huge difference right now. So hopefully that helps. We have gathered, and we just launched this. We're starting to gather the really comprehensive list of sales technology tools. We think that this is a completely unique list, and including free profiles for the sales technology vendor, so we can bring them all into one place, and you can be able to start to analyze this as one of the review sites that you use in your vetting process. And definitely, if you are a sales technology vendor, set up a free profile and get in there. And if you've ever used any of the major sales technology products, be sure to go on, take a look at some of the reviews, leave a review, and begin to use this resource to be able to help vet out all these different tools and technologies that are out there. So I hope that's helpful, and definitely as a technology marketer, salesperson, even if you're coming in it from a different industry, the way that buying takes place today has changed dramatically from just, 10 years ago. And it's much more centered around like how we buy things as a consumer, or the B2C world. And that's infiltrating into B2B. And I've noticed in this research that those two worlds are converging, and the role of marketing and sales is changing tremendously as well. So I hope that that gave you a little bit of a insight on how to navigate that. I'm over at tenbound.com. My email's there. If you'd like to continue the conversation, get in touch with me. If not, thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.